Welcome to Structured Teaching, Part 1, Physical Organization, Schedules and Routines, and Visual Supports. In order to understand why structured teaching is important, we first have to remember that special education is not a place. All students should have access to the general curriculum, and this is true no matter what type of disability the child has or how severe that disability is. We have to remember that special education is individualized supports that give students with disabilities the opportunity to access their curriculum. These supports can be delivered in any place, not just in a self-contained classroom. Offering the supports that students need can help them to be successful in any and all settings. Structured teaching offers us a way to ensure that every student has the ability to be an active member of their class. First, we have to consider how the student's IEP goals fit into the general curriculum. A student's goals may be different from the goals that other students in the class are working on, but they need to be related to the things that the other students are working on. For example, learning to recognize a triangle when others are learning about the angles of the triangle. Students may need to be taught how to do something in a different way, like having a hands-on activity instead of listening to a lecture, and they may need to work in a different way, like using a computer instead of a pencil and paper. By making adaptations and modifications that support the participation of all students in the classroom, we increase the chances that everyone has an opportunity to be successful in any setting. When we refer to structured teaching, we're talking about providing structure and organization in the classroom environment on a student's level of understanding in order to promote engagement, independence, and positive social and behavioral interactions. Structured teaching includes such things as physical organization of the classroom, schedules and routines, and visual supports. In looking at environmental musts, we want to be sure that each student and staff member is instantly aware of what is expected in each area of the classroom and of the school building. We also want to make sure that a schedule is in place and visible to everyone in the classroom, that staff assignments are clear. We'll talk about zone defense schedules later. We want to make sure that materials are out, organized, and in good condition. Division Teach suggests these questions to ask yourself when considering the environmental arrangement of your classroom. Is there space provided for individual as well as group work? Are work areas located in the least distractible settings? For example, you don't want to put quiet centers like books next to loud centers like blocks, or a center where students are working together and talking loudly. Are work areas marked so that a student can find his own way? Are there consistent work areas for those students who need them? Does the teacher have easy visual access to all work areas? So, can the teacher see what every student is doing to ensure safety and that everybody is on task? Are there places for students to put finished work? Are work materials in a centralized area and close to work areas? Are students' materials easily accessible and clearly marked for him or her? Are the boundaries of the areas clear? And can the teacher observe each area from all other areas of the room? To begin, here are some non-examples of what a physical environment should look like. Obviously, nobody wants a messy classroom, but we all know that it happens. That's why it's important to have clearly defined areas where each item in the classroom should go when a student is finished working with it, and we should teach all students to put things back when they're finished. Teachers should conduct regular sweeps of the classroom to make sure that things have been put back where they belong, and remind students of where things need to go on a regular basis. Sometimes you may have to go back and reteach where things go. It can be very difficult for students with special needs to understand what is expected of them in a chaotic environment that doesn't have clearly defined visual expectations. Here are some examples of physical environments that are set up to make it clear what is expected of students. The picture in the top left corner shows a play center set up neatly with labels to show students where each item goes on the shelf. Additionally, the chairs set toward the shelves provide a physical boundary to show students where they are expected to stay while they are playing in that center. The two pictures on the bottom left show visual schedules clearly defined for students to go up and see what is expected of them to do next. A parent bulletin board provides clear information for parents to see what is going on in their child's classroom. The picture next to that shows a check-in area next to the area where children's cubbies are placed. Children take their backpacks out and place them in the divider. This teacher taught her students that it was very important to remember to open their backpacks, take out their notebooks, and place them in the notebook holder as soon as they arrived at school. The two sets of pictures in the center show clearly defined work areas with visual setups that show students what is expected of them to do first, next, and last. We will talk more about structured teaching and structured work systems in Structured Teaching Part 2. The two pictures on the right show classroom centers set up to provide a clear visual expectation of what students are expected to do. The signs have one piece of Velcro for each student that is allowed to be in that center. Since these two centers only have two pieces of Velcro, it is clear that only two students are allowed to come and put their pictures on those signs and be in that center at a time. In the picture of the computer center, there is also a classroom schedule posted above the computers with clear expectations for the staff to see what they will be doing at all times. When considering schedules and routines, there are a couple of things to think about. First, the general classroom schedule should be posted for all to see. It should be somewhere in the classroom that everybody is able to visually access it and clear enough for students to understand. It should outline the events of the day, but does not need to outline specific work activities for each individual student. However, some students will need individual schedules that help them understand what they need to be doing during the activities listed on the general classroom schedule. An individual student schedule can take a variety of forms, but must be individually oriented, so it needs to be age appropriate, balanced with difficult and successful activities, and based on that student's level of comprehension and endurance. So how often does that student need reinforcement, or how often do they need a change in activity? These pictures show examples of what a general schedule would look like. The first two are oriented toward younger students that stay in a single classroom for all or part of the day. The second two examples show a more complicated schedule that might be seen in a secondary setting such as middle school or high school. These pictures show examples of individual student schedules. Individual student schedules can be typed or handwritten, or they can be picture schedules made with photographs or illustrations using programs such as BoardMaker or Symbol Sticks. For students who need a more concrete representation of what is expected of them, an object schedule could be made with objects that represent each area of the classroom that they are expected to go to. Schedules can be made to show the expectations within an individual activity, and a first-then schedule can show a student what they need to do in order to earn a reinforcer. It is important that if you use a first-then schedule with a student that you remember that the then should always be something that they're working for, not another expectation that is going to be placed on them. Additionally, it is a good idea to have a method that is used to notify students when part of their schedule has changed. Earlier in the presentation, we mentioned zoning plans. A zoning plan is a visual schedule for the staff that tells everyone in the educational environment who they are responsible for, where they should be, and what type of activity they should be doing. A zoning plan increases student engagement because every staff is responsible for specific students. This makes sure that every job gets done and eliminates "I thought you had it" syndrome because the teacher has clearly defined what jobs need to be done and what adults in the classroom are responsible for each job. This also ensures lunches and breaks for all staff and ensures that everybody stays on task. This is an example of a classroom zoning plan for a classroom with a teacher and 3 paraprofessionals. It's a good idea to have a zoning plan that shows what staff should be doing on a day that all staff is present, as well as a zoning plan that provides a contingency for what to do when a staff member is absent. In a classroom that has a teacher and paraprofessionals, it's a good idea that if the teacher is absent, that the substitute not be assigned to complete the teacher role, but rather that a staff member who is in the classroom every day step into that teacher role and that the substitute do the paraprofessional's role. You may not realize it, but visual supports are important to all of us. When is the last time that you used a road map or a mapping app on your phone, a planner or organizer, traffic signals, a recipe, a shopping list, a calendar, or the aisle markers in a store? Visual supports provide a clear structure for each of us to remember the things that are expected of us, the things that we need to get done, and to figure out how to reach our personal goals. Just as these things are important to us, they are very important to the students that we work with. It could be said that visual supports are the roadmap to a successful, inclusive classroom. Here are some of the reasons that visual supports are important. Visual supports increase predictability for students who may not automatically understand what comes next. They limit confusion by providing a clear visual picture of what is expected. They also change behavior by showing students what to do instead of telling them what not to do. Visual supports can support literacy for all learners by pairing written words with pictures. They support students with disabilities who may not have the ability to automatically understand the expectations in the classroom, and increase independence because teachers can use visuals to show students what to do instead of having to always tell them what to do. Visual supports can be used to provide choices within the classroom, to facilitate student-initiated communication, to increase comprehension, and to add fun and excitement by adding color to the classroom and also letting students know the exciting things that they can look forward to when they meet the expectations. One of the most common ways that visual supports are used is to convey behavioral expectations to students. The following are some examples of visual supports that can be used in the classroom. Classroom rules are an obvious general support that can be used in any classroom to show students what is expected of them. It's important to remember that rules should be worded positively to tell students what to do instead of what not to do. Rules can also be set for individual activities to show students the things that they are expected to do within that activity. The last example is a 5-point scale, which has many uses but is most commonly used to allow students to gauge their emotional state of being. The 5-point scale and many ways to use it can be found at fivepointscale.com. Rules and expectations can be set to show students what is expected of them in any part of the building that they go into. The next two examples are examples from School-Wide Positive Behavior Supports, or RTI Squared B programs that are meant to teach all students across the building expectations school-wide. For example, Panther Pride shows that students are expected to be respectful, be accountable, and be successful. The poster on the bottom shows students how they can exhibit these traits in all areas of the school building. Voice scales can allow teachers to non-verbally show students what the expected volume for any activity is, and to also show them when they are too quiet or too loud for a specific activity. The examples on the bottom left and bottom right are student-specific behavior sheets that allow behavior tracking across the day for a student to be able to earn an item or activity, points to cash in at the end of the week or at the end of the day, or other student-appropriate reinforcers. The bottom center picture shows a token board for a student to earn tokens when they are meeting the expectations that have been set for them in order to earn a specified student-selected reinforcer. The cup in the top center picture contained tokens that the student was allowed to exchange in order to have time to talk about things off topic that he wanted to talk about. Once he was out of tokens, he had to wait for a specific time for his tokens to reset in order to gain the opportunity to talk about things that were off topic. Visual supports can also be used to convey routine expectations, such as showing students exactly what they are expected to do in a specific class, center, or area of the building. It can show students what it looks like to be ready to learn or the specific steps that they need to do in order to complete the routine in a certain activity or class. Lastly, visual supports can be used to help students understand abstract concepts. These abstract concepts include understanding what is a big deal and what isn't a big deal, how to take deep breaths in order to calm down without hyperventilating, what social skills are and how they can interact with other students and understand the things that other people are thinking by looking at their face and their body language, time, what a break is, and how to understand what comes first and what they can expect to earn by completing an expected activity. Visual supports can also help students get organized by showing them exactly what they need to be prepared for a class. Thank you for joining us for Structured Teaching Part 1. We hope that you have gained a better understanding of how to use structured teaching to support all students and increase student success across all parts of the day and all environments. Here are some resources if you would like to look further into structured teaching, and we will provide Structured Teaching Part 2, which will focus on structured work systems to increase independent work completion for all students.